Hello and welcome back to art class. Today we are going to do a triptych project. It's actually one word, but it's pronounced like it's got two. Triptych project. And we have to prepare a few things before we can get really going on it. First, you're going to need two pieces of paper. You're going to want a pencil, eraser. You're going to want a straight edge. This is just to have some nice straight lines. A ruler tends to work the best. You're going to need a little bit of glue, just a smidge, and then you're going to need an object that we want to draw. The object, I'm picking a shoe because it's something that everybody's going to have. It's pretty common object. You could pick, like, let's say you wanted to pick a phone. One of the problems with doing a phone, though, is that when the screen goes off like this, it's very blank and there's not really any interesting thing to look at. So if you wanted to do something like a phone, then you'd have to do it with like the icons showing. And that can get kind of complicated because, you know, some screens are very busy. Or you could do it like this. We just wouldn't want it with the screen off because that would actually be really boring to look at. So you're gonna need to find an object. I kind of recommend a shoe because it's really easy. You always have one with you, so it makes it kind of easy to do. All right, so what we're gonna do is we need to actually glue this piece of paper together. We need a bigger piece, so we're gonna glue these two pieces together. And we've done this before, so just a few dots, very tiny. Close the nozzle, spread it out as thin as it'll go. Okay, let this sit for about 15-20 minutes just so the glue dries because we don't want to be working on wet glue. Okay, and we are back. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to divide this into three sections. That is what a triptych is. It's a picture that is kind of divided into three sections, and usually they're separated by a little space, like cutting them separately, but we're going to keep them all together on one piece of paper just so we don't lose them all. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fold this over to a little bit about the halfway of this. And I'm not actually creasing it. I'm going to pull this over just to see if I'm pretty close. And that's pretty close. So I'm folding this over to about halfway here. I'm going to fold this one over. And I was pretty close on this one. So I'm not actually folding the whole paper in half. I'm taking one edge and going about half the distance as it goes. Okay, so I have three fairly even spaces. And then I'm going to use my straight edge. This is where this comes in handy. And I'm going to put a line like that so that I have my three areas. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to pick your item. I've picked a shoe, and you have to decide, will it look better if your pictures are all going up and down like this, or would it be better if your picture was going side to side like this, and you'll have to work going down. It kind of depends on your object. So in my case, the shoe is a little wide, so it makes more sense for me to go this way. But let's use my phone example again, and I want to do this, and maybe I had some headphones that could go with this, and I'm laying it down, then it might look better if I drew it going up and down. Okay? Basically, this is kind of like a still life. Okay? And we've done the still life before where you're just drawing the object. This is more of what we want to consider an observational drawing. And what an observational drawing is very similar to a still life where you're just drawing an object, but you're trying to get as much detail as possible. Still lifes don't always have to end up as realistic. Observational drawings do. We want this to look as realistic as you can make it. Okay? So in the first section, okay, we want to draw the whole object. So we're going to want to draw the whole thing. We want to be able to see all around it. So there might be some extra space. Okay. So I'm going to draw mine real quick, and I'll kind of fast forward through it, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so now that we're looking at it, so you can get the rough idea of my shoe here, we're looking for a nice line drawing. We're not worried about shading just yet. We are not going to be coloring this picture, but we will be doing some shading. Okay, so our first one at the top, or the first side there, that is going to be your full picture, so you can see the whole thing. And I'm going to add in, just because I don't like it floating in the background there, I'm going to add like a table or something that sits on. All right, so then the next one of this project is I'm gonna zoom in, okay? I'm gonna be a bit closer. So I'm gonna pick an interesting area of the shoe that I want to kind of focus on. So I'm gonna personally focus on like this part right here, because it's got the metal parts here, my shoe, and it's got a little bit of texture and some flat areas. So, I want to zoom in. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to zoom in. I'm not going to draw the whole shoe. I'm drawing just the part. And that means it's got to fill the whole space here, okay? So it's going to get a lot closer. It's like you're zooming in with the camera. And I want to get a good chunk of the shoe. So I don't want to do, I'm not zooming into just like one little piece. I'm going to get just a bit closer, so. Okay, so now I've got the first one. First one's got the whole image in there, whatever the object is. This one is a super zoomed in. Again, I'm not worried about shading right now. We will deal with shading later, but it's zoomed in a bit, okay? We're not super close. We're not focused on one little aspect. We are zoomed in where we're seeing just a bigger chunk, and it is filling the space. As you notice, it is now taking up almost all of my space here. It's going off the page. And one of the biggest differences is maybe you don't get, like in this picture, you might not have as much detail because it's so far away. But here, you're gonna have to start putting in some of the little details that you see, like the textures, some of the little holes that I had, that metal has a little bit of a thickness. I need to go in and still put my shoelaces in. This is where we need to be today. I need you to get your paper glued. That's gonna take a little bit of time. And then you're gonna figure out what object you're gonna do. Like, again, you can pick a different object than what I did. I picked a shoe because I know everybody's got one, okay? You don't want it crazy, super complicated, because my shoe is a little bit more complicated than most people's, but it's the shoe I had. But I also don't want just a plain one layered shoe. You need to have something kind of in between. We need something with a little bit of challenge for you. At the same time, not so crazy that it's going to take you forever. We will deal with this third image and then some of the shading next week. Okay, so I just need the first image and the second image. Okay, so it's whole image, then zoomed in, and then we'll deal with this one. This one is going to be like super close, like the thing's in your face. That's how big it's going to be. So we'll deal with this one a little bit later. All right, all I need you to do is get a picture of this, upload it to Google Classroom for me, and I will see you next week.